I'm Kate Chaplinsky for the HAN Network, and as part of our 2017 candidate conversations, I'm joined today by Paul Lavoie, who's a Republican running for First Selectman of Trumbull. Paul, so happy to have you.
Hi, how are you, Kate? It's great to be here.
Good to see you.
Great to be
here. Now,
here.
Paul, you have a long history with local government, actually. You've served on the Board of Assessment Appeals, Board of Finance, currently on Board of Education. Why did you decide to run, though, for the town's top office?
Well, I've long desired to have a career in public service. I'm the father of 4 children, and I was president of the Fathers Club, and I was president of the Youth Hockey League. So while all my kids were growing up, I really focused kind of all my efforts into volunteer activities around our children. So as they, they're all grown, we're empty nesters. So as they grew up, it was, I've been encouraged by lots of people that I'd worked with and lots of residents to get involved with public service. So I started out by running for the Board of Assessment Appeals, and within a year of serving there, was appointed by First Selectman Herbst to the Board of Finance, and then ran in 2011, and for 5 years served as the vice chairman. So kind of through that experience, became a lot more interested in public service and in taking my leadership skills and my community skills and my government skills and putting them all together. And as First Selectman Herbst has run for some townwide offices, so the Republican Party has also looked for a bench and who could possibly succeed First Selectman Herbst. So I was identified very early, kind of in that process, as a possible successor. So it's all about timing, right? Mm-hmm. It's always about timing. It's always about who's going to be ready and if you're interested in all of that. And so when this opportunity came along, my wife Cindy and I sat down and we really had a long conversation about my desire to serve greater in a public service role. And her comment to me was, you've done everything that we've needed to do to raise our children. It's now your time, and I know this is something that you're very passionate about. So, so now is your time to serve Trumbull in a greater role. So it really has been something that I've been working on for a long time, and like I said, it really has to be all about timing. But I really think my experience on the Board of Finance and then serving now as the Finance Committee Chair of the Board of Education really gives me that well-rounded experience. I know a lot about how Trumbull runs, how government runs, how things run even at more of the state level through some other things that I do. So this is really it's a passion. It's one of those things that, again, I've long desired to do, but it never really was right. And now the timing's right, so. Yeah.
And now, speaking of how things are run on the state level, you've been concerned, like many, about what the impact of the state budget would be specifically for Trumbull. What's your reaction to the bipartisan budget that was passed last week?
I said this on the Board of Education. I've said this probably 10 times if I've said it once. As we've gone through the different versions of the budget, I said, if all of the work that we've done is for nothing, meaning that if we do have a budget that protects Trumbull and is able to protect what we think is important, I will be the happiest person in Trumbull. I said I will be the person who has done probably the most work, because it's the education budget that we're trying to preserve. And we've gone through different levels of stress as it's been related, as the budget has gone through. But it was very public in saying that, even with all this work that we've done, if we get a good budget, I'll be happy. Well, we got a really good budget. I think the bipartisan budget, the impact on Trumbull's a little over $200,000 this year on a $171 million budget. You can absorb that. We can absorb that. I'm not going to say it's easy, but we can absorb that. On the Board of Education, we've made significant changes already in that budget to be able to make sure that we keep invested in student teaching and student learning in the classroom. So we've protected the Board of Ed. Now we get the money back. I'm looking forward to working with the finance director of the Board of Finance and making sure that that money, the Board of Ed is protected and the other groups are protected as well. So, so to answer your question, I'm relieved. I'm happy. All of my wasted time has been wasted, and I'm the happiest guy in Trumbull that I wasted my time. So.
Paul, another thing you've spoken about recently is attracting new business to Trumbull. How would you do that? Something residents are always interested in.
Yeah, so I think that it's part of my background. So I've served as a senior executive at privately held, publicly traded companies over the years, and I've been a small business owner. I've owned a small consulting firm, and then I've owned a small advertising agency as well. And I had a career actually consulting small business owners. I was a business coach for 5 years, and one of the largest business coaching franchises in North America was right here in Shelton, Connecticut. So So I've worked very closely with small businesses on teaching them how to be successful. So it's actually one of the things I'm very excited about as being the first selectman of Trumbull, is working with our economic development director to what I call sell Trumbull, to really talk about our great park systems, our great education system, and how there are so many needs, the services and businesses that our residents will need, and how do we do that through smart economic development. You know, the Long Hill Village. And we're really looking at placemaking and putting in villages and utilizing our assets. I mean, I was at an economic development breakfast this morning, and they were talking about one of the jewels of Trumbull is the Pequannock River Trail. And he said, you know, you need places to connect that trail to people who would like to walk and have it end at places where you can shop and have restaurants and coffee and all of that kind of stuff. So, so we're doing that. You know, with the Long Hill development, we're doing that. The Madison Village development, you know, is very successful, and it was successful because we needed it. So we're really to take a look at how we can do that. And then the other thing, Kate, is that we have this huge gap of 18 to 35-year-olds. They don't live in Trumbull. And they don't live in Trumbull, which means, and our population is aging, and we really need to take a look at that millennial group and attract them to Trumbull, because we need to have that robust population to make sure that we're a great town. So if we can, you know, millennials require walkability, they require access to things, they don't, you know, they want to be in a little community. So, you know, we look at some multi-use developments, some businesses. But I speak the language of business. So when I sit with a small business owner, I know what they've been through. I've sat in their chair. I understand, you know, and quite frankly, I can offer them suggestions on how to help grow their business and build their business, because I've done it. I've done it for years. So, so I'm really excited about that opportunity to help grow our commercial tax base and bring businesses to Trumbull.
Now, as you mentioned earlier, there's no incumbent in this race. So if you were elected, would your administration be different from the current one? And if so, how?
So I'm Paul Lavoie. I'm a different person. So will it be different? Absolutely, it will be different. But one of the things that I'm really proud of is there are 25 people running on my team. So we have 32 people that run on Team Lavoie. 25 of those people have served the town of Trumbull in the past. Those 25 people have over 200 years of collective service to the town of Trumbull. So will we be different? We'll be different because we'll have a different leader. I have a different leadership style, and we'll have a kind of a different vibe and a different culture around Town Hall, but we'll have a lot of the same people who have a lot of experience. And if you look at the track record over the last 8 years, you know, tax increases at 1.68%, you know, commercial grand list growth at 64%, you know, some of the great things that we've done on the Board of Education. So I think it's a mix of we're going to have the experience that we need to keep Trumbull moving forward, but I'm also going to bring a little bit of fun to Trumbull. So it's just my personality. I love being out with people. I love meeting people. I love engaging with people. And so you know, that's just my personality. And so I think we're going to have a little bit more fun in Trumbull than we might have had in the past. So.
And town council districts, this has been a topic that's come up again and again. Where do you stand on council districts?
Yeah, that's an interesting debate that we've had. So if you look at, you know, and you really kind of have to really try to understand what the motivation is. If the motivation is that we've disenfranchised the voter by going to 4 voting districts and we've made it more difficult to vote, then that's a problem that we can solve. If the issue is minority representation and we want more people in minority parties representing, that's a whole separate issue. Now, I am supportive of the 4-district model. The reason for that is that it certainly lines up with our House of Representative districts, all of District 4 is with Laura Devlin. You know, we've got that little slice of the 122nd that's with Ben McGorty. But I like that. You don't have to, you know, you're not confused as to who you're representing. And it also gives the voters more choice, right? Without getting too technical on this, with a 7-district model, you're only voting for 7 representatives because each party gets 1 seat. So then there's only 3 in each district. With a 4-district, you're voting for 13. So now we're giving the voters more choice. I actually reached out to the 7 districts group and tried to broker a meeting with the registrar of voters to sit down and address the issues that they had in the report. I was the only candidate that said, listen, if these truly are the issues, then let's not try to resolve this by a petition, or let's not try to resolve it by a lawsuit. Let's try to resolve it by sitting down and just, you know, talking about it. Unfortunately, a lawsuit was filed, so the registrar of voters said, there's pending litigation and we're not going to meet. So a little disappointed in that happening. But listen, I think that if those are really truly the issues, we can resolve those and we can sit down and we can look at polling places, we can expand polling places, we can make it easier for people to vote as well. But I have to tell you, I've never waited more than 5 minutes to vote, and on presidential elections when turnout is high, what I find is that the time goes quickly because I'm just chatting with my neighbors. It's actually pretty good. You know, we had an interesting people, there's a new restaurant that moved into the mall and people were waiting 2 hours. And they don't seem to be upset at waiting 2 hours to go to Wahlburgers, but waiting 10 minutes to vote, that seems to be a big concern in Trumbull. So maybe if we see burgers in the lines when we vote.
There's an idea.
There you go.
Is that a new campaign promise?
If they did, they'd be sitting duck burgers, though. I have to tell you that. I have to support my friend Dave Ritigliano. So.
And Paul, moving on to a different topic. We're having fun. Moving on to a different topic, though, what is your position on the proposed senior community center?
Yeah, I hear that every door I knock on. People ask me that. My position has been crystal clear from the beginning on this. Trumbull needs a community center. Trumbull needs to do something for our senior citizens, but we also need to do something for our community. You know, at the last debate, I tried to, articulate my vision of, Grandma and Grandpa come to the community center and they've got activity rooms for themselves and they bring the grandkids and there's stuff for the grandkids to do. And Mom and Dad go down and take a walk along the trail and reconnect because, it's just with kids and everybody's being busy. And then they all come back and they sit together and they enjoy a coffee in our cafe in our wonderful community center. We have 3 generations, all serviced and all joined by that community center. Now, that said, there's a couple of things that concern me. First, we need to get through the state budget. I mean, if we were going to lose $4.9 million in funding and they're going to send $5.5 million in pension, I'm not sure I could support a $17.5 million community center. Good idea, wrong time. Well, we've passed that hurdle. So now the next step is we have to go through a process. So our building committee needs to present to the town council. And the town council is our legislative body. Town council will do one of 3 things: accept, reject, or modify. And we'll have public hearings, and we'll let the public weigh in on the community center and whether they want a community center. Once the council decides what that's going to look like and what we can afford, then it's going to go to a public referendum. And let me be really clear on this, all right? So the referendum language was put in by the Trumbull Republicans, and it was put into the charter through charter reform, of which the Trumbull Democrats vehemently opposed. So the only reason why this project would go to referendum is because of the foresight of the Trumbull Republicans to make sure that any capital project that exceeds $15 million goes to a vote. So I just want to make sure that point is clear, that that's why we have that. So I think it needs to go through the process. It needs to go to a referendum. We need to let the voters decide. If the voters decide that we're going to have a community center, we'll build a community center. If they decide that we're not going to have a community center, then we need to look at that property that we've acquired and we need to figure out what an acceptable use for that will be. I will tell you, one of the things I did hear today is that making connections to the trail is vitally important to Trumbull, and that is a connection to the Pequannock River Valley Trail right there, that area. So we're going to do something that'll connect that trail and make it easier for millennials to stay here in Trumbull. So.
And Paul, last question, is there any other issue or topic we haven't discussed that you would want to address if elected to office?
There's really not a lot of things. I talk to people in Trumbull and I knock on their doors. I say, are you happy? And 99.9% of the time, people say they're happy in Trumbull. Taxes, we've kept taxes stable and predictable. Our education system, as a member of the Board of Education, and I was on the Board of Finance, I was critical of the Board of Education and how we were spending money. So I ran for Board of Education, became the Finance Committee Chair. First conversation I had with the administration says that we don't spend money on education anymore. We don't spend it, we invest it. And when we invest money, we expect a return on that investment. So we looked at things like, energy. We saved $600,000 a year in energy. We're moving to $800,000 a year. We upgraded boiler rooms through performance contracting, which avoided $7.6 million in capital bonding. So, in Board of Education meetings, nobody comes for public comment. We have the second greatest education system in the town of Trumbull. Things in Trumbull have been managed well, and they've been managed well by the Trumbull Republicans. So, you've hit upon the issues of, that we hear at the doors with the community center. A new hot one is leaf pickup. I have a 5-year record of not wanting to eliminate the leaf pickup program. I think it's a service that our residents have come to, they've come to enjoy, and for the amount of savings, what I would consider to be insignificant, it's just we should keep. As your first selectman, I'd keep the program. I'd keep the leaf pickup program. But other than that, there's Trumbull's a well-managed, well-run town, and we need to make sure that it stays that way.
All right. Paul Lavoie, candidate for first selectman of Trumbull. Paul, thanks so much for joining us
today.
Thank
you, Kate. Thanks for having me.
All right.
I had fun.
It was fun. All right. We'll see you next time
right.
on our 2017 candidate conversations.
Thanks.